Shashilek, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to the two-day conference on quantum physics, brain function in modern science and Buddhist philosophy. We are very honored to have Venerable K. Rinpoche Geshe Tashi Sringla, Abbot of Serame Monastery, as a chief guest today. And we are very honored to have Professor Partha Ghoshji as a keynote speaker, and all the speakers from all over India, and to all the audience. Before we begin this auspicious gathering of scientists and Buddhist scholars, may I request our chief guest and our keynote speaker and our director, Venerable Geshe Doji Tamtila, and director of Chogur Sumling, Ms. Shanti Ji, and president of Indian Institute of World Culture, to start the gathering with lighting the lamp. Thank you. Now I quickly want to give a brief introduction of the three organizer: Tibet House New Delhi, Chogur Sumling Center Bangalore, and Indian Institute of World Culture Bangalore. Tibet House New Delhi was established in 1965 by His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama of Tibet for the purpose of preserving the cultural heritage of Tibet at a time when it faced extinction in its homeland, as well as for providing a center for Tibetan culture and Buddhist studies. His Holiness the Dalai Lama's recurring emphasis on developing a sense of universal harmony and compassion with a need for a meaningful exchange between different religions and culture also had a profound effect on the purpose and activities of Tibet House. Over a period of 5 decades since its inception, Tibet House has come to be recognized as a significant institution of Tibetan culture and Buddhist studies. Tibet House has a museum whose purpose, in His Holiness' words, to bring the heritage in the past in close contact with values that are current. A library housing a sizable collection of important books and manuscripts, a publication unit, and a program division which regularly organizes lectures, seminars, conferences, film screenings, and exhibitions. As an increasing number of people worldwide get interested in Tibetan studies and Buddhist teachings, the horizons of Tibet House continue to expand. In 2016, Tibet House launched a 4-year master's course in Nalanda Buddhist philosophy program in the presence and blessings of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, which is now 360 participants from 39 countries. In 2018, we launched another program of a 1-year diploma course in Nalanda Buddhist philosophy, which has now 560 participants from 42 countries. The course is both online and offline, so people from all over the world can access these teachings through online, like live streaming. The first batch of the Nalanda diploma course was finished last year in 2019. So just this month we have opened the admission for the second batch of Nalanda diploma course. So you can find more details about Tibet House programs from the brochures given to you. And then our second organizer, Chogur Sumling Center, is a center for the study and practice of Buddhist meditation and philosophy as preserved in the Tibetan tradition. It is affiliated with the Foundation for the Preservation of the Mahayana tradition. Chogo Sumling is a Tibetan name given by His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, which means sanctuary of the three turnings of the wheels of Dharma, referring to the three types of teachings given by Shakyamuni Buddha. The three turnings of the wheel of Dharma encompass all the sutras taught by the Buddha, both Hinayana and Mahayana. Over a period of about 1,000 years, the teaching lineage of great Buddhist pandits such as Nagarjuna, Arya Asanga, Acharya Shantideva, and Acharya Chandakriti were transmitted to Tibet from the great universities of ancient India such as Nalanda and Vikramshila. After the decline of Buddhism in India, these precious transmissions were preserved and practiced in Tibet. Since 1959, as thousands of Tibetans have come into exiles in India, this rich tradition of Buddhism, which emphasizes the cultivation of compassion, embracing all living beings, has spread around the globe. Feeling a responsibility to offer this culture treasure back to the people of land of its origin, His Holiness the Dalai Lama requested Kyabje Lama Swebo Rinpoche to start a Buddhist center in Bangalore. Since then, CKSL has been fostering an environment that helps people develop their fullest potential for infinite happiness, wisdom, and compassion, inspired by an attitude of universal responsibility. Our third co-organizer is Indian Institute of World Culture. The Indian Institute of World Culture was started in 1945 at Bengaluru by visionary Sri B.P. Wadia. The institute is actively involved in promotion of universal values of great cultures of the world. The prime objective of the institute is to foster the growth of a fully cosmopolitan spirit among citizens. It bases this on universal brotherhood and faith. In the universal moral law of karma. These ideas do not belong exclusively to any age, climate, nation, or creed. For achieving these ideas, public lectures are regularly organized on relevant and contemporary topics. These are blended with programs of music and dance to enrich the cultural life. On an average, 150 programs are organized yearly, with not less than 2 programs each week. Many distinguished scholars of the world renowned have delivered lectures at the Institute. The Institute maintains a general library of over 100,000 volumes to satisfy the intellectual needs of the community. A separate children's library has been established for the younger generation. Both these have become very popular and useful over the years. Its magazine section regularly receives over 400 periodicals. Lectures and performing art programs are held at the 2 open halls every week. Over the decades, the Institute has seen several world leaders like Martin Luther King Jr., Ralph Bunche, Dr. Sarvepalli Radhakrishna, Dr. C.V. Raman, His Holiness the Panchen Lama attended these open house programs. Till date, more than 2,100 lectures, 3,600 art programs, 250 plus book release, 100 plus workshops have been organized and conducted. Now may I request our chief guest and our keynote speaker and the director and president of the 3 institutes to take their respective seat on the dais. May I now request Venerable Geshe Dorji Damdila, Director, Tibet House, Delhi, to present the souvenirs to our chief guests and other guests. Professor Partha Ghoshi. Shri Vijay Prasad Ji, President, Indian Institute of World Culture. Ms. Shanti Ajnik Ji, Director, Chogo Sumling Center, Bangalore. Thank you, Gishla. May I now request Venerable Geshe Doji Damdil, Director, Tibet House, to address the gathering. Venerable Geshe Doji Damdila is currently the Director of Tibet House, the culture center of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, New Delhi. He travels widely within India and abroad to teach Buddhist philosophy, psychology, logic, and practice. He has also worked on several books. As assigned by the office of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, he worked with Professor Paul Ekman on His Holiness the Dalai Lama's book Ethics for a New Millennium Part 2 and the book series Art of Happiness, which were jointly written by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. He has written a number of papers for national and international conferences on topics such as the paradox of brain and mind and ultimate reality according to Arya Nagarjuna. Venerable Geshe Doji Damdila.
Good morning, all of you here. Welcome to the conference organized by Chogo Sumling Buddhist Center, Indian Institute of World Culture, and Tibet House, Delhi. And respected the chief guest, Venerable Geshe Teshungla, the abbot of Serame Monastery, and Shri Vijay Prasad Ji, the president of IIWC, and Ms. Shanti Yashnik Ji, the director of Chogo Sumling Buddhist Center, Bangalore, and Professor Pratap Ghoshi, a great scholar who I met several times, and the first time I met him and listened to his presentation gave me such an inspiration, such a desire, such a joy that who presented such a complicated topic as quantum physics in a very simple and also in a very interesting form. So that is something so unique. So we are very fortunate that we have such great presenters here and the other panel, and also that we have the Chogo Sumling, the staff, volunteers, members, and who really worked so hard for this conference. And we have the Tibetan staff, the young, very energetic Tibetan staff who have been working from Tibet to Delhi, coordinating with the members here. So it is like, in a way, it is like a historic the conference organized by Chogo Sumling Buddhist Center, then IWC and Tibet House in collaboration. Okay, so basically I'm here to welcome all of you here, and it just utters some words pertaining to what this conference is all about. We see that the humanity today, whether on the national level or on the international level, we see that there are so many crises. This is a problem everywhere, individually, in the family, in the community, on the national. Wherever you travel, you read the news, you see that there are all these, as though like there's no hope for the world. But I like to reiterate here that news is one thing. Meanwhile, it is not really that the news means nothing. This is also not the case. At the same time, we don't really need to panic. Number two is that we have to look for solutions. Given that all the problems, on whatever level it is happening, these problems are somehow related to the human thinking. For that matter, unless and until we rectify the human thinking, no matter how much rules, regulations, and sanctions are imposed, nothing will really work in the long run. So therefore, such conferences play a very important role, particularly if you look at the topic, the quantum physics, brain functions, and the modern science and Buddhist philosophy. If you look at the topic, it's not that this is the topic, but we can have as many of such versions of the conference anywhere. So the idea is that given that the mind has to be tackled and rectified, unless that is done, and no matter how much we impose all rules, regulations, nothing helps. So how to rectify the mind? So it is, let's say, that our mind works in two ways, where the mind interacts with the object. And a mind which interacts, there are two things: object with which the mind interacts, and the subject which is interacting with the mind. And the object that is interacting, not knowing what that object is, say, seeing effigy there as human being. Object is actually effigy, and you perceive that as a human being, and then complications can arise, anger, craving, all these thoughts can arise. So distorting the object. And the subject, the basic framework of your mind, the subject is unhappy, then no matter what you encounter with, how subtle the object is, how pleasant the object is, your mind cannot really see the reality as it is. And then finally, this mind decides the interaction, the play of the mind between the object and subject, then the overall outcome in the form of this mind, that's going to determine whether you're going to be happy or not happy. If you're happy, you will embrace others. If you're not happy, you will simply expel others from you or push others away from you. That gives rise to all the fights and conflicts in this world, in the family, domestic violence. All these things happen because of that. So for that matter, we see that to know the object so clearly is very important. To know the subject so clearly is very important. For the object, since millennia, for all these many years, for all the thousands of years, the great thinkers have been thinking about exploring what the object is. So that is what is technically known as the ontological reality. What's ontological reality out there as the object? So there we have physics. So initially, like in the Western context, like the Socrates, Plato, and the Aristotle, and these great thinkers, they came in India, for example, the Mahavir, and the Gita, for example, and then the along contemporary book, the Mahavir, but Shakyamuni period, so many thinkers came and to explore what this ontological reality is constituted of. This is number one. Then later on, with the advent of modern science, Newton came into being. Newton was exploring about what all these, the three laws of motion. So to explore what the external world is constituted of. Then over time, like 100 years ago, quantum physics, Niels Bohr, Heisenberg, Schrödinger, all these great thinkers, the scientists, they came into being to articulate the concept so well, ontological reality. And then alongside for the subject, since 1,000 years ago, people exploring what the subject is like, what the mind is like. For that, this psychology came into being. And then with Freud, Sigmund Freud, in the West, the Western psychology came into being. In the East, Eastern psychology already existed 1,000 years ago. Then recently, like 200 years and more clearly, like 100 years ago, the neuroscience really started to thrive with the advent of the technology. The neuroscience really started to thrive a lot. So we see that these are the disciplines which talk about the ontological reality, which talk about the subjective, the epistemology. So therefore we see that this conference, although if you just stay superficial look at the topic, they're so divergent, but actually we are to see them as interconnected. So this is what we are here for, and we are so fortunate we have all these brilliant presenters. We invited from all over the world, all over India. And we are very fortunate that the great scholars are all here. And then I also like to share a little bit about the Chogyam Somling Buddhist Center. Initially, this conference, the idea is conceived on the basis of the director of Chogyam Somling, Ms. Chandi Yasningji. Who amazingly, very dynamic, very compassionate, and a great heart. And she asked me what can be done to expand the services, activities of Chogyam Somling. So I suggested that the one thing that we can for sure do is, say, a conference. So the idea is that we should reach out to as numerous people, particularly the youngsters, educated youngsters, because they have the crave for knowledge. They want to know. They want to not only know, they want to see that their life is more meaningful, they're happier. For that matter, they're not getting information. The information that they get is the messengers, what call it? Messengers. And then the what's up, all this hi, or sometimes hi, how are you, what's the food like? And these really don't really help them to keep calm and peaceful. And then versus PUBG. So that way we see that people are not benefited. Young people stay go into depression more. So therefore, the Chogyam Somling can play a great role. And for information, say more than Tibet House. Tibet House is in Delhi, and I can't really anticipate or expect people from here being very regular to Tibet House. Although I came to realize that there's one gentleman over there who is doing course from Tibet House, not the diploma course. But then most of the people here, Bengaluru, why not you make use of such brilliant, such a wonderful center as Chogyam Somling, which is right here at the center of Bengaluru. Why not you make the use of that center? So where all this incredibly precious information are being imparted to you, and instead of all these useless things, wasting so much of one's time, just go for something meaningful from Chogyam Somling, so that you'll find that a greater weight and greater sense of fulfillment, greater sense of ease, and that you go home, your parents are there, your parents see that you are very different, rather than just like a small child after the toy of the PUBG and these things. So that something more meaningful is happening to you. So this is so important. So therefore, the one thing for this conference is to inform the audience, and then through you, your family members, your youngsters, your brothers, sisters, all, to be aware that there's a center known as Chogo Sumling in Bangalore, and who provides such a rich tradition of psychology, the ontological reality, and so forth, so that your mind can become so rich and enlightened to see that you are in a position to control yourself, to help your family members, and to help your community, your nation, the world at large. Okay, so this is one thing. In this connection, now to really expand the horizon a little bit more, we have, so the whole idea, finally, is the the problems. His Holiness the Dalai Lama, wherever he travels, one question is what constantly is being asked to His Holiness by experts, economists, medical experts, social workers, educationists, then business people, and the administrators, the politicians, the sensible politicians. So the question that is asked to His Holiness, the common question is, while the modern education is meant to bring about a greater harmony and happiness in the world, with the advancement of the modern education, what is expected? The world to be more happy, harmonious? That's not happening. So these two are these two are inversely proportional, not directly proportional. So where are we going wrong? This question asks why the education is not really helping us. Modern education is not helping us. Without hesitation, one thing that someone says is that modern education is what this world inherited from the Britishers, and from Britishers to America. So this education initially came into being since the time of the Industrial Revolution, where the physical might is required and the brain is not much required. Industrial Revolution means we need laborers. So where the computational skills, that the physical strength, then to increase the product, material product. That was the emphasis, and that education, legacy of that, unfortunately, the legacy of that is what we'll still inherit. So there's the whole, everything's dedicated to bring about brain development and not for the heart development. So now today, the human beings have really evolved to such extent where not only the brain development is necessary, heart development equally is necessary and not to be neglected. So for that matter, His Holiness now single-handedly in this world, you just look at any part of the world, we see that except for His Holiness the Dalai Lama, of course there are people, but on such a level of the level of respect and the credibility as His Holiness the Dalai Lama, we see that it is only His Holiness the Dalai Lama who's really working single-handedly in this pursuit, the pursuit of disseminating the universal happiness, and that too on a very practical ground, which he calls as universal ethics. So this is the last year, in the month of April, this was launched under the title C Learning, Social, Emotional, Ethical Learning. So I would very much encourage everyone here in this gathering to just make it a point to see what it is like, see learning for yourself, for your children, for your family, for India, for the world at large. So this would be brilliant, the beginning for us to start this new year with the aspiration to do for yourself, for the nation, for your family, and for the world. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Gishla. May I now request Ms. Shanti Yajnik ji, Director, Choko Sumling Center, Bangalore, to address the gathering. Ms. Shanti Yajnik was trained as and having work experience as a software engineer. She has been attending classes at CKSL for the last 15 years, and she has been the director of CKSL Center, Bangalore, for last 7 years. She's a student of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Kapche Lama Sopa Rinpoche. Ms. Shanti Yajnik ji.
Namaskara, good morning, Tashidilek. I thank all of you for coming, and especially Geshe Dorji Damdul, Geshe Tashi Sering, Professor Partha Ghosh, and all our eminent speakers as well as the organizers, IIWC, Tibet House, and Chokur Sumling volunteers for hosting and being part of this event. So I'd like to just say that, like, one of the things we thought we see is that there are parallels between physics, neuroscience, and Buddhist philosophy, and many of us don't know about it. Both the people who are interested in Buddhism as well as the students of psychology and physics, and only now it's coming out. So we'd like to have a discussion and find out about these things. And of course, Buddhism as a religion as well as science tries to find out reality, so we should come to the same point, so it isn't a surprise really. And also science has a way of investigating things which is very very great through reasoning, as well as Buddhism has a lot of reasoning, so we definitely could find some things in common. Plus we like to learn more about how to enrich our knowledge in the various disciplines and see how we can benefit our own selves and help to control our mind through this kind of knowledge. So I'd like to thank this conference actually was envisioned and suggested by Geshe Dorji Damdul. I'm thankful to all the staff of the Tibet House as well as IIWC and Chokur Sumling for their support in organizing it, and also for the eminent speakers including Professor Partha Ghosh for being part of this and sharing their knowledge. And I hope you enjoy it, and we hope we can learn more together. Thank you.
Thank you, Shanti ji. Now may I request Shri Vijay Prasad ji, President, Indian Institute of World Culture. Shri Vijay Prasad ji was graduated from Bangalore University, having over 35 plus years of experience in handling various aspects of finance in senior leadership position with MNC majors such as account officer and manager, internal auditor at Oman Trading Establishment, and senior manager, Finance Center of Excellence, Infosys. Shri Vijay Prasad is currently the president of IIWC Bangalore.
Hari Om. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. It's a great day for Indian Institute of World Culture. On its 75th year anniversary, we have gathered here for this 2-day symposium on quantum physics, brain function in modern science, and Buddhist philosophy. It's my pleasure to invite you all for this 2-day session. I welcome all the participants who are gathered here. These days is very difficult for people who spend extra time on acquiring additional knowledges. People are only busy with the academics and the professional. It's my pleasure to invite Mr. Ken Rinpoche, Professor Partha Ghosh, Ms. Shanti Yajnik, Mr. Geshe Dorji Damdul, for this today's symposium. As initially introduced by the Institute, it is one of the premier association supporting various cultural values, promoting cultural heritage, exchange among people through cultures, and seminars on variety of subjects including art, dance and music. Indian Institute of World Culture is one of the best known public library but owned by private, which has more than 100,000 books in the main library, and we have 20,000 books on the recently refurbished children's library. As we said earlier, on an average, Institute conducts 150 endowment programs covering philosophy, literature, science, dance, music, fine arts, etc. In line with the objectives of laid out by our founder Sri B.P. Wadia, special lectures and music programs that highlight the rich cultural diversity and unity of human spirit are being carried out regularly. As our earlier speaker said, the humanity is very important today. In the urge of science, technology, advancement of technology, we are losing the human values. Same time, we have to continue the human value also. Due to paucity of time, I do not want to make more speech here. I once again welcome you all for this two-day symposium of synergy between science and philosophy. I thank my co-sponsors, Tibet House and CKCL. Thank you.
Thank you, Shri Vijay Prasad ji. Now may I request our keynote speaker from the science perspective, Professor Partha Ghosh ji, to address the gathering. Professor Partha Ghosh retired as professor and academic program coordinator of the S.N. Bose National Center of Basic Science, Kolkata in 1999. Presently, he is the honorary scientist, National Academy of Science, India. He obtained his DPhil degree from Calcutta University in 1968 under the supervision of Professor Satyendra Nath Bose. He was awarded the Senior Scientist Platinum Jubilee Fellowship of the National Academy of Science India, the Indira Gandhi Prize for the Popularization of Science by Indian National Science Academy, MBE by the British government, and the National Award for the Best Science and Technology Coverage in the Mass Media of the National Council for Science and Technology Communication for the period 1986 to 1990. He has recently edited two books entitled Einstein, Tagore and the Nature of Reality, and Tagore, Einstein and the Nature of Reality, Literary and Philosophical Reflections, both published by Rowe, Taylor and Francis Group, London and New York. Professor Partha Ghosh ji.
Good morning, honorable Geshes, distinguished speakers on the dais, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Let me begin by expressing my deep gratitude to the organizers of this conference, particularly Geshe Damdul ji, for kindly inviting me. The topic, Quantum Physics, Brain Function in Modern Science and Buddhist Philosophy, is somewhat daunting for a physicist like me, for it encompasses three very different areas of human knowledge which have traditionally grown and developed independent of one another. Any meaningful deliberation on such a topic calls for intensive interdisciplinary research, which I must admit, like many, I have not had the opportunity to undertake. Quantum physics brought about a complete revolution in the world view of nature. It dealt a severe blow to the objective certainty of classical Newtonian physics, which gave a very reasonable and accurate account of the physical universe. Over two and a half centuries, the outstanding success of Newtonian physics led to entrenched belief in an objective reality strictly governed by causality. Einstein firmly believed in such a reasonable world. To this belief system was added the new belief in the absence of spooky action at a distance. Two objects separated in space, not interacting with each other and yet influencing each other instantaneously. Einstein called it spooky because there was no physical explanation for it. But since the mid-1920s, when quantum mechanics was discovered, this reasonable view started giving way to an unreasonable quantum world of shadowy and whimsical existence, in which Einstein's dictum, God does not play dice, and his ban on spooky action did not hold, at least apparently. All this has opened up whole new possibilities like quantum teleportation, hacker-free quantum communication, and quantum computers. The emerging science of quantum information processing has led to many new ways of looking at the world, including one in which the ultimate reality is just information. The whole world is like a giant brain that is constantly processing information. What is bewildering and puzzling is that all this has been achieved without a proper understanding of the physics at the deepest level. As the famous physicist Richard Feynman is supposed to have said, quote, "I think I can safely say that nobody understands quantum mechanics." Through this lack of understanding has crept in many speculations and interpretations. Speculations about the essential role of consciousness in observations, the many worlds hypothesis, which makes the world split into many worlds whenever you make an observation, and endless other interpretations such as quantum Bayesianism or cubism, which takes an agent's actions and experiences as the central concerns of the theory. Over the last decade or so, it has also become increasingly clear from the statistical data generated by studies in the cognitive and social sciences, psychology, and political science, that they violate the statistical data, they violate the laws of classical probability theory, Kolmogorov probability theory. Such data can be better modeled with the help of what is called quantum probability theory. In other words, the processing of information by the human mind appears to be more akin to quantum information processing than classical information processing. This has led to the development of a whole new approach known as quantum modeling of social science. In parallel, neuroscience coupled with modern imaging techniques developed in physics has led to many important discoveries about the functioning of the brain. and how meditation can change the brain. Meditation and its techniques have been developed in the Buddhist tradition over 2.5 millennia. This is an area which we physicists look forward to learning from neuroscience and Buddhist philosophy and practice. The history of mankind reveals how the pressures of survival, coupled with human knowledge and greed, have led to large-scale changes in the environment we live in. The dangers of global warming, climate change, and other environmental catastrophes are imminent, as are the dangers of religious fanaticism and militancy. Hence, the dialogue between the three apparently disparate disciplines of quantum physics, brain science, and Buddhist philosophy, initiated by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, assumes special significance if we remember that the future of mankind depends critically on our understanding of the human brain from a comprehensive and holistic point of view. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Partha Ghoshji. Now, may I request our chief guest, Venerable Khenpo Rinpoche Geshe Sringla, abbot of Serame Monastery, to deliver the keynote address from Buddhist philosophy. Venerable Rinpoche Geshe Sringla finished his Geshe Haramba degree in 1990. He has been teaching Buddhist philosophy in the West since 1991 till 2018, mainly in the UK and other countries. He had written 6 books on Buddhist philosophy and practices and created a 2-year online course, The Foundation of Buddhist Thought. In 2018, His Holiness the Dalai Lama appointed him as the abbot of Serame Monastic University in India. For his services to Buddhism in the UK, Venerable Khenpo Geshe Sringla is awarded the British Empire Medal in 2019. Venerable Rinpoche Geshe Sringla.
관계 도저히 손에 다와 탐제 담배춘에 된자바 고담되라 자세로 So this is the verse to pay homage to the Golden Buddha through his teachings that he had given out of great compassion and with great wisdom. So, as a tradition comes from ancient Indian culture, at the beginning of this kind of event, it is good to pay homage. So this is my first. I felt great honor and also deeply humbled to be asked to come here as a chief guest and also the first session chairperson. This unique and amazing conference on, as Professor Ghosh has mentioned, from several different disciplines: quantum physics, brain function, and modern science and the Buddhist philosophies. The conference subject crosses, the topic crosses, from modern science to the ancient Indian Buddhist philosophy. And also I would like to express my sincere well wishes and thanks to the three organizations who organized this two-day conference. It is not that easy to bring together many distinguished speakers and also the participants, very young, energetic, knowledgeable people, particularly in this kind of big, very busy city. So I would like to thank to the director of those three organizations, Tibet House, Chokursum, and the IWC. And also people who participate here. You sacrifice your day or 2 days to come here to participate and to learn. As one of the early speakers mentioned, it is not that easy to give time, this kind of conference. So, I would like to say thank you for coming to, participating in the conference. Now then, the second part of my brief talk is, it is the time that different fields of, the disciplines like quantum physics and brain science and ancient, like this, the ancient Buddhist philosophy, these great scholars come together and interact and share their knowledge. And by doing it, to bring new kind of movement within the society, as Geshe Toshtamdul had mentioned several times, the modern, 21st century, the society where we live, really great need of this kind of, the knowledge sharing and, and gradually to contribute to the community for the well-beings of the people who live in the community. Of course, as Professor Ghosh has mentioned, it is not that easy. The scholars to come together from the different fields, come together and to share their knowledges. I have experienced this while I was in London. There were great reluctance in the university level professors or lecturers to share their knowledge with the religious background people. There were great reluctance to do that. And there are some reasons for that too. But we need to try, at least we need to try, to come together and to bring our knowledge, our experiences from the different fields and to talk to the community. What are the differences? What are the similarities? And what are the purposes from these, from ancient to the modern, disciplines? And what we can do from here by sharing our knowledge, our experiences. And as Geshe Toshtamdul had mentioned, His Holiness Dalai Lama constantly expresses. It is the time really we all put together, our effort put together to make this world more peaceful, more harmony. It is through spreading the knowledge. It is through raising the awareness from the different disciplines and come together. And I think that is really something worthwhile, having this kind of gathering with the distinguished scholars. Then the second part, when we share our knowledge, our experiences between the scholars and also with the community, it is our intention. We should check our intention, and the intention will play great part of this kind of gathering. And as ancient Indian Buddhist culture, I know, constantly checking our intention of participating doing it is something important, which I would like to raise this. I'm sure most of you know this. Of course, these different disciplines, their focus, the activities what they do may differs from one discipline to another discipline. But the main focus, the main aim should be the same for the humanity, well-beings of the humanity. Whether you are learning or reading, listening, brain science, neurologies, neuroscience, or physics, or Hindu tradition, philosophy or Buddhist philosophy. The main aim should be the well-beings of the humanity, and that must be in our intention when we share our knowledge. Then another point is, as His Holiness says very often, this country, the Indian country, Indian culture, which is very ancient culture, which has very much based on ahimsa and karuna, compassion. And for thousands of years, all these different ancient Indian religious traditions, philosophies, are very much based on these 2 points. And His Holiness says India and the Indians, they have a great potential to show the world what we have here. The culture which is based on ahimsa and karuna, non-violence and compassion. To do that, we have to come to the 21st century methodology. We have to use those methodology. We have to embrace those institutions, like modern science institutions. Without embracing the modern, the methodologies and the institutions, we will struggle to get our message across initially to the Indian people, eventually to the world. And having this kind of dialogue is something very, very important and useful to all the disciplines. We can learn from each other. Then, coming to the topic here, I haven't got any formal educations in modern science, quantum physics, or brain science, or anything. But I'm very keen to read articles, magazines on those topics. But I had a little education in Buddhist, the teachings or Buddhist teachings. It seems, there are many similarities. Some of the, modern, what you call the sciences like quantum physics and the neurology's understanding of brain, emotions, thoughts, relation to the brain, and those great thinkers on the quantum physics to analyze how things and events are come into being, come into existence, and so forth. And it is also in terms of the methodology, what the modern science they use through analysis, through examination, through research. So in those two areas, there are many similarities in Buddhism. Many of the ancient Indian Buddhist thinkers like Nagarjuna, Aryadev, and so forth have repeated again and again. Appearance and the realities are not same. There's a big gap. How things and events appear to us and how they exist. The manner of how they exist is very, very different from the manner of how they appear to us. Things and events appear to us in a very solid, very located, and so on and so forth. If we analyze a little bit further, immediately it starts to shaken. That solidity, that static, that something from its own right, in and of themselves, immediately start to shaken. And it seems to me, as I mentioned earlier, I don't have any confidence to talk about quantum physics. It seems there are some similarities on that area too. I'm sure some of our later speakers will, touch on those topics. And also methodology, that in Buddhism in general, and particularly Sanskrit-based Nalanda Buddhist traditions, there's a tremendous sense of, the critical analysis are involved to accept the teachings of the Buddha and the subsequent Buddhist masters. The teachings of the Buddha and subsequent Buddhist Buddhist masters' teachings are not accepted from their face value or who they are. And that manner is, repeated by Buddha himself and the subsequently amazing, great, ancient Indian Buddhist teachers. So, like in the modern science, things are accepted in the medical level, in the, how things come into being. They are accepted through long research, critical analysis, and so forth. Then also, now, because our well-being individually and collectively. Our well-being is not just what we have externally or materially. Our well-being involves our thoughts, emotions, minds, and so forth. Because nature of our existence is not just this physical body. Who I am and what I am is not just this physical body which has a gray hair. Who I am, what I am here, and also you, involves in our inner world, emotions, thoughts, feelings, and so forth. In that context, the modern neuroscience, neurologists, they also do lots of, research and using very modern technology. And now more and more, the new understandings are coming through using modern technologies. For example, brain plasticity, the theory was here more than 100 years ago. Initially, that was rejected in the West. When that theory was, delivered, initially it's rejected. But now, it is mainstream theory, brain plasticity. Our brain is not static. It is not fixed. The day we were born is constantly changing. And, recently there is an article some of you may have read, put together by many, from many different fields by King's College in London. The title is called Early Childhood. Deprivation is associated with alterations in adult brain structure, despite subsequent environmental, the enrichment. So the basis of the analysis is mainly on some of those very unfortunate children in Romania in the early 1960s and 70s, put in adoption and very badly treated, whatever. And the main point in this article is their brain size is much smaller. Even the physical brain size is much smaller than the other children. So these are now very clear. Our what we can think, what we can express is not fixed. And that is very much, one of the main Buddhist, and not just I think Buddhist, but main ancient Indian philosophical view, like nature of impermanence. Everything is subject to change. Nothing is static. Only a few abstract things, philosophically speaking. But in reality world, everything is subject to change. When I first heard this, the concept of brain plasticity was rejected in the early when the concept was come into being. I was a little bit shocked, although I don't have any knowledge in that field. How can they say that? So like that. So there are many, the similarities and in terms of the view, modern science like quantum physics, and and the Buddhist, and also in the methodology side, there are also many similarities. So therefore, during this conference, with those many great scholars coming together, expressing, sharing their knowledge, will make our understanding in these fields make better and more useful to the world. So my last part, I sincerely, genuinely, in a prayer, this conference be very successful, very helpful, and also the three organizations who put lots of effort, bring together. May the organizations, the whatever activities, whatever projects they put together, be very successful and useful to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Venerable Khenpo Geshe Singla. Before we conclude the inaugural session of the two-day conference on quantum physics, brain function in modern science and Buddhist philosophy, we would like to welcome Sri Harshvardha, Additional Commissioner, Income Tax and GST, Bangalore Government of India. May I request our Director, Venerable Geshe Tojit Abdullah, to welcome him with a kata. We also would like to welcome Sri Venkatesh Ji, Honorary Secretary, Indian Institute of World Culture, to our conference. Thank you, Geshla. Now we have come to the conclusion of the inaugural session. We will now break for tea, and tea will be served in front of the hall, and we will come back at 11:30. Our first session is on decoherence in quantum physics and the parallel in Buddhist philosophy. Thank you. And the washroom.